All right, guys, a lot of big cards that happened in the Carolinas this year or in 2024. We're in 2025 now as we take this. Sorry, we waited. 2024, Mr. Dylan McGrath, you're on the microphone for a lot of these fights. What do you see? What was the card of the year?
It was very tough. I went back and watched. I didn't want to be accused of the recency bias like last year, so I went back and watched a lot of these cards, or at least watched as many of them as I could. It was tough. It was between Fight For It 17, which I believe was the first show of the year for Fight For It this year, and Fight For It 20, which was the one in Raleigh with Jonathan and Paris. We talk about shows that have a big feel to them. It's very hard to get that feeling with a local show. The Raleigh show had a very big feeling. That could be me because I'm from the area, and it's the first time we've had local MMA in a very, very long time in a venue where it was like the first time I ever watched live MMA was in this venue. So it meant a lot to me to not only be there, be commentating there, to see people watching MMA in Raleigh again, but also to be able to corner and coach there for the first time. There are also just some incredible fights on that card, top to bottom. There are some Corey Worley's fight really sticks out to me as one of the most entertaining grappling, kind of back and forths of the night. But the main event was great. It had a big fight feel to it because all the things that went into the pre-fight stuff that I talked about in the package I made. So I'm going with Fight For It 20 in Raleigh.
I could go with Fight For It 23, recency bias, as you put it, because I stayed home and I streamed it and I watched every fight. And it was up against the UFC fight night, and I watched Fight For It instead. But as far as where I was and where I was live, I got to say, even though the crowd was not the same level as the Raleigh card, for me, it was the card in South Carolina with 22 with Z Reddick taking on Paez. I just felt like you saw more knockouts from the kickboxers. Right, that's amazing to me. So I really like that card as my card. If I got to just say one, it's going to be that one. And if I slide over to kickboxing, it's going to be the card that Lightning Strikes did in early February. And not just because I had fighters there, because it was really a good card.
That Rock Hill venue is special. If they can figure out a way to do, Modern Warrior versus CCS or something like what you've been talking about on your show, Seth, if they can figure out a way to make something like that happen, I do believe they could sell that venue to a capacity that would be special. But it does have a very big fight feel just walking into the empty venue. It feels like a legitimate, kind of super legitimate venue to watch anything in, let alone some cage fights. So I would love to see more in South Carolina because Fight For It 23, we had some serious issues with the commission and the show we did do in South Carolina. The officiating, the judging, I found everything to be so good that night that I left very complimentary of them, which is very rare for me to do with officials and judges. So
I'll sort of jump in because I was sort of, as Dylan knows and Coach Seth may know, my watching the fights is sort of different for me every once in a while because I'm traveling. And so the Fight For 23 in Rock Hill, I had to watch it through a live stream in Atlanta because I was working down there. So watching Fight For 23 with teammates, but unfortunately watching it on a live stream in South Carolina made it more difficult. But I can feel everything coming through the stream, and I'm sort of torn with that venue only because I've seen other promotions go down there in Rock Hill and how do I say this politely? Lose their ass.
Yeah, no one's made it work yet. No one's made it work yet. But you can tell the potential is there. Yeah. But it definitely needs a big show to make it. I mean, it's just such a big place that unless you really sell 900 tickets to 1,000 tickets, it's going to look empty no matter what. Especially if people are like sitting just wherever, like, spacing themselves out. It's going to look really empty. And I do find it very interesting that both your guys' favorite show this year are shows where you were listening to the broadcast, and I was a part of that, but maybe I had something to do with it. Maybe I'm adding a little something,
That's only due to the fault that I have to work. I have to be out of town. Maybe you add something, but it's mainly because
it's mainly Icy Mike. He adds all the seasoning.
There you go. We'll have to get Icy Mike on here. sometime.
A beautiful piece of footwork from Bermudez. Puts him in position into Orval.